Meanwhile, authorities are uncovering more about the New Orleans attacker and the man who rented the cyber truck that exploded outside the Trump Hotel in Vegas. One of the big similarities is that the men both served in Afghanistan, and it was around the same time. Let's go now to CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata for more on this. Charlie, thank you so much for being with us. Let's start with the New Orleans attacker. What can you tell us about his military history?
Right. So U.S. Army officials confirmed to us today that Jabbar, the suspect, was a U.S. Army veteran. He also served with the U.S. Army Reserves. But we originally contacted a Navy spokesman who told us he had originally enlisted back in the Navy in 2004, but he was discharged in their delayed entry program just 1 month later. So he then served in the U.S. Army from 2007 to 2015 as a human resources specialist and an IT specialist. As you said, he was deployed to Afghanistan, and that was from February 2009 to January 2010. Now, after he finished military duty, he served in the reserves once again in information technology from 2015 until 2020. He ended with the rank of staff sergeant.
And one of the key things that sort of is linking the attacker in New Orleans to the cyber truck attack is that they do have this military history, although authorities are saying right now there is no link between these two attacks. What can you tell us about the individual who rented out the cyber truck? What about their military service?
Yeah, like as you're mentioning and as we're speaking about it now, the reason you come to me at the Pentagon, there's a link by virtue of the fact that they both served in the U.S. military, right? Mm-hmm. So they are looking into that. The FBI is looking into it. As of now, they haven't really seen it. They kind of served at Fort Bragg. They served in Afghanistan. We can't be entirely sure whether there was an overlap, essentially whether they knew each other. But going back to the Tesla truck incident, this is reading from the Army statement, and I want to make sure I get it correct. So the person who suspected of renting the truck was an active duty service member identified as Master Sergeant Matthew Allen Livelsberger. He had 19 years service history, including Special Forces Command. So he would have had the kind of expertise in bomb making without speculating too far there. According to the Army statement, he enlisted in 2006. He was active duty till 2011. Then he joined the National Guard 2012, then Army Reserve again. And he was, or is, an Army Special Operations soldier. So it goes on. And I have to quote this statement because we can't confirm this ourselves. U.S. Army Special Operations Command can confirm he was assigned to command and he was on leave, and this, according to the statement, at the time of his death. Okay, but despite that statement, CBS News can't confirm that the person inside that vehicle is the same person who rented that vehicle. So we're going to hold back on that. But that's according to the U.S. Army statement.
Right. Still a lot of information has to be confirmed. A lot of things are fluid, as the FBI said in that press conference just a few moments ago. But, quick question for you, Charlie, before you go. They talked about all these different agencies that are working on the investigation into both of these incidents in New Orleans and Las Vegas. Is the military going to play a part in some of this investigation more than just giving information on these two individuals' service?
Yeah, absolutely. See, whenever anything happens that involves a active or former service member, they have their own investigation department here. They look into it. So it's not just the service record. That's the first thing we got. And by the way, that is still patchy. We don't have the exact dates of both these individuals, for instance, when it comes to Afghanistan. But they'll be working very closely with the FBI because they'll be looking into not just who is responsible for the attacks in New Orleans or in Las Vegas, but what was behind it? What was their motivation? In the case of the New Orleans, when were these ideas put into his head? Because if it was during his military service in Afghanistan, or he was somehow conditioned by something that he had experienced, of course that becomes a U.S. military concern. So they'll be looking into the background, speaking to the other soldiers and service members, men and women who served beside them, to try to piece together what exactly motivated these individuals to do what they did.
All right, Charlie D'Agata live for us at the Pentagon. Thanks so much for that information.